Thanks, Dallas. Thank you, ExSSA USA, for giving me this opportunity to share my ideas with you, my sisters. Today, I want to talk about a gold mine you possess. A gold mine you could explore, you could exploit, to empower yourself, empower your loved ones, and why not empower the world around you? I'm talking about a gold mine of personal stories. These are stories you've lived, stories you've experienced, in fact, stories you've become privy to because of your collective personal experience. But why do these stories matter, you would ask? Why do personal stories matter? They matter because our sisters need them. A lot of people are desperate for them. In March 2014, this year, I received an email from a lady I don't know, but she's one of my Facebook friends from South Africa. And this is what she wrote. Hey, Auntie, sorry for distracting you, but I need your advice. I found a small job. I'll start next month. But I'm scared that I won't be able to take care of my kids as I should. I'm scared that I'll miss them and they will feel I abandoned them. I really need this job. I have responsibilities back home. Please tell me what to do. Looking at your faces, a lot of you could advise this young woman based on your own personal story. But where are your stories? They are nowhere to be found. They are being guarded as private documents. Of course, there are many Western books out there about women returning to work and the guilt they feel. But I can bet you my last penny that none of these works would deal with the reason she's having to go back to work. What reason did she give? Responsibilities back home. That is something that is specific to our demographics, right?
Yes.
So, who are those going to write those self-help books that cater to our demographics? If women, educated women like us, are sitting on our stories. In 2006, after 12 years of marriage, I became divorced. And the academic that I have learned how to learn. Of course, I quickly picked up books on divorce, raising children in a single-parent home. But how I longed for stories that dealt with my African situation, that communicated to me how to deal with in-laws during this kind of setup. My older sister had a friend that I used to communicate with. She had been separated for 8 years. And each time I spoke with her, and I presented a challenge, girl, she had a response, just the right response. She would answer with a personal experience that spoke to my own situation. And one day I made a joke with her. I said, why, sister, I don't do you. If not, you write it, you don't remember, just take book, open a chapter 2, open chapter 3. And she laughed. And it became a joke between us. Each time she sees me, say, you don't read to read chapter 18. And I'll make a joke back, and I said, you don't write the book. And of course, she's now throwing the challenge at me. She said, hey, you don't pass through the thing, write the book where other people do. Challenge well taken. My sisters, our personal stories are very important. The great writer Chinua Achebe says that the story is our escort. Without the story, we are blind. Another prominent writer, Jackie Konazinski, puts it this way. She says, the story shapes our experience. Without the story, everything that happens is like a globe, and nothing really means anything. I don't want my life to float around like a globe. I don't think you want yours either. But why are personal stories? Why do people need personal stories? Because they are effective. Personal stories are effective. In 2010, the Cameroon Professional Society organized a congress in Maryland. The topic was, one of the topics of the panel was the Cameroonian woman in the USA. Who is she? We were 4 speakers on that panel to answer that question. Right now, I remember only one presentation, and it's not even my own presentation. The only way I could remember my presentation is to go back to my notes. And I want to tell you there were very smart women in that panel. Why do I remember the one presentation? I remember it because that young woman, I actually was a secretary, the young girl, she came from Atlanta. Because she answered the question, the Cameroonian woman in the USA, who is she? She answered with her personal story. In trying to demarcate, to define who that woman is, she talked about her immigration to this country. She talked about her struggles as a new immigrant. She talked about problems of being a new wife, a new mother, and how these problems affected her marriage, and how she had an eventual divorce. But she also talked about the habilitative qualities of the United States, how she was able to regroup and make something of herself and became a professional to the point where she's standing and talking in front of us. We were glued to our seats. She was real. She was sincere. Her story captivated our imagination. And I still remember that story till today. Why do I remember that story? Science has a reason for it. Science explains it. Professor Yuri Hassan at Princeton University says that when a person is telling a story, the same processes that happen in that person's brain are taking place in the listener's brain. It is called brain-to-brain coupling or brain-to-brain synchronization. Stories are powerful. And some of you sitting here know that. You know the power of stories, but you use it negatively. That is why Sister A has a problem with Sister C, will call Sister B, fabricate the story, exaggerate it, and tell Sister B in a way that they can believe it. And even when Sister B is trying to doubt it, say, "You sure?" He said, "I'm here to tell you." By the time she does that, Sister C, her attitude has changed. Our stories are effective. They're effective because they're authentic. They're real. The other day, my oldest son had a dead toenail. And he came to me. He says, "Mommy, that dead toenail has come out. It's looking weird. Do you think it's going to come back?" I said, "Yes, it will come back. But guess what? If it doesn't come back, you're in the United States where the healthcare system is good." But your grandmother was not that lucky. Your grandmother had a fungal disease that ate her right toenail, leaving only a little stump of a nail there. And when I grew up as a young girl, I used to polish her toenails. And when I came to that little stump of a nail, it became a joke or a game for me. I would take the nail polish, hold it on top of that little stump of a nail, and it would, to see whether the nail polish would drop exactly. It became a game. By the time my son was leaving my presence, there was no longer a talk of a weird nail or whether it would grow back. There was even a smile on his face. Science again has a reason for that calm that he experienced, because dopamine had been secreted in his brain. Dopamine is the chemical that makes us, when we feel secure, when we feel safe, it gets secreted. When we listen to a story that validates ours, a story that makes us feel secure, dopamine is secreted in our brain. This same dopamine that people who take drugs want to get, people who gamble want to get. How wonderful it would be to get dopamine to secret in your sisters, put in your members of your family, even package your personal stories and put it out there for people to read it and feel empowered. But I'll tell you something. There's something I did not tell my son, but I'm going to tell you. And I'll come down to tell you this. I didn't tell my son about that day in 1986 at the mortuary in Lancantine Hospital. 8th of September, I was pacing outside, waiting for my mother's body to fall. I became very impatient. I wanted to go in and see my mother dead for the first time. When I entered that room, there my mother was laying, frozen. I looked at her, and I could not recognize that person with a bubbly woman I had come to know. That woman who, before the advent of television in Cameroon, could not stand a dollhouse. She would say, "Bring my hand back, bring my hand back, I want money." She would take her hand back, go inside, take 1,000, hit it on the table as if it's 100,000 francs. Says, "Buy bimbo, buy hot puff puff." We'll go buy it, bring. She'll take her cassette. She always liked recording my poster cassette. She'll put it in the cassette thing, and the whole house is dancing. She'll not leave it at that. She'll go to the window, open it, the light will be reflecting on the glass. She'll use it as a mirror and be dancing, seeing herself, and she'll like making sound. How could that woman be the one lying here so still, so frozen? As I looked at it, trying to understand. My eyes fell on her feet, and I saw that little stump of a nail. That tiny stump that I had grown up polishing, and I recognized that was my mother lying there. Trust our God to teach us a lesson in the most unlikely places. From that day on, when I look at myself and see any piece of imperfection, I feel empowered. Because that little tiny piece of imperfection on my mother's body connected me with her at that time. But my dear sisters, you don't have to wait for your mothers to die for you to find the meaning in their personal stories. Those of you who have your mothers alive, talk to them. Find out the stories of the scars on their body, the scars on their mind, the laughter that they have. Find out the stories. But like any gold mine, in order to dig the treasure, you really need to go deep. So you must dig deep into your personal life. Dig deep and excavate the incidents that have nurtured and natured you. Find meaning in them. Package them for yourself. Package them to empower your family. Package them to empower the world out there. This is something I've become so aware of.